Let me tell you about Sarah. She's 52, divorced, and honestly, she was convinced her dating days were over. She'd been on every app, tried every technique, and nothing worked. Younger women seemed to get all the attention, and she felt invisible. Then something happened that changed everything. She was at a coffee shop, and this gorgeous 35-year-old guy behind her was clearly trying to get the barista's attention, the typical 20-something with perfect skin and that effortless confidence. But here's what blew my mind. The barista was polite to the young woman, sure. But when Sarah stepped up to order, something magical happened. She said exactly 10 words to him, and I watched his entire demeanor shift. His eyes lit up, he started smiling differently, and he actually wrote his number on her cup without her even asking. The young woman behind Sarah looked absolutely stunned. And honestly, so was I. Because Sarah had just demonstrated something that most women never understand, that attraction isn't about youth or perfect skin. It's about knowing exactly what words trigger a man's deepest psychological needs. Those 10 words Sarah used? They're what we're going to talk about today. Because once you understand them, age becomes irrelevant. Your past becomes irrelevant. Everything you thought you knew about why men choose certain women becomes irrelevant. What if I told you that there's a 47-year-old woman right now who has 3 men fighting over her attention, while women half her age are sitting alone on Friday nights wondering why no one calls them back? Here's the thing that's going to shock you: it's not about her looks, her body, or even her money. It's about 10 specific words that she uses that literally rewire a man's brain and make him think about her every single day, even when she's not around. And before you roll your eyes and think this is some kind of manipulation tactic, let me tell you, these aren't tricks. These are scientifically proven psychological triggers that tap into something so deep in a man's mind that he can't help but be drawn to her like a magnet. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you will change everything you think you know about attraction, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why older women who know these secrets have men eating out of the palm of their hands. Point 1. That's so interesting, tell me more. The first phrase that drives men absolutely wild is "that's so interesting, tell me more." But here's why this works on a level that'll blow your mind. Men are starving for genuine curiosity about who they are. Not what they do, not what they own, not how they look, but who they actually are as human beings. When you say these words, you're not just being polite. You're activating what psychologists call the validation circuit in his brain. Here's what happens neurologically when a man feels truly heard and understood. His brain releases oxytocin, the same hormone that creates mother-child bonds. But here's the kicker: when an older woman shows this level of genuine interest, it triggers something even deeper. You see, younger women often ask surface-level questions because they're nervous or trying to impress. But when a mature woman asks, "That's so interesting, tell me more," she's communicating confidence, wisdom, and genuine fascination. She's not trying to prove anything, she's simply interested in understanding him. I had a client, Maria, who was 49 and felt completely invisible to men. She started using this phrase on dates, and within 2 weeks, she had 3 different men calling her every day just to talk. Why? Because she made them feel like the most fascinating person in the world. The secret is in the delivery. You're not just saying words, you're creating space for him to be vulnerable, to share parts of himself he rarely gets to express. And trust me, once a man feels that level of connection with you, he'll move mountains to keep you in his life. Point 2. I've never thought about it that way. The second phrase that makes men obsessed is "I've never thought about it that way." This is psychological dynamite, and here's why. Men have this deep, primal need to feel like teachers, like guides, like they're adding value to your life. But here's where most women get it wrong: they think this means playing dumb or acting helpless. That's the opposite of what works. When you say, "I've never thought about it that way," you're acknowledging his unique perspective while maintaining your own intelligence and strength. You're not saying he's right and you're wrong. You're saying his viewpoint has expanded your understanding of the world. This creates what I call the mentor dynamic, but in the healthiest possible way. He feels valued for his mind, his experiences, his wisdom. And you know what? Older women are actually in the perfect position to use this phrase authentically because we have enough life experience to recognize genuine insight when we hear it. I remember talking to this 45-year-old executive, Janet, who told me she used this phrase with a man she'd been seeing. He had shared his philosophy about work-life balance, and instead of agreeing or disagreeing, she said, "I've never thought about it that way. That's actually really profound." She told me his whole face changed. He opened up about struggles he never shared with anyone, and by the end of the evening, he was talking about introducing her to his family. Why? Because she made him feel like his thoughts mattered, like his perspective was valuable. That's the power of this phrase. It turns conversation into connection, and connection into obsession. Point 3. You make me feel safe. The third phrase that creates an unbreakable bond is "you make me feel safe." Now, before you think this sounds weak or needy, let me explain why this is actually the most powerful thing you can say to a man. Every man has this deep, biological drive to be a protector. It's hardwired into their DNA from thousands of years of evolution. But here's what's fascinating: in our modern world, men rarely get to feel like protectors in any meaningful way. When you tell a man "you make me feel safe," you're not talking about physical protection, though that's part of it. You're talking about emotional safety. The safety to be yourself, to be vulnerable, to let your guard down. And here's why older women have such an advantage with this phrase. We're not talking about fairy tale rescue fantasies. We're talking about real, mature, emotional security. We've been through enough life to know what real safety feels like, and when we express that a man provides it, it means everything to him. I worked with a woman named Carol, 51, who was dating a man who seemed emotionally unavailable. She was ready to give up when I suggested she try this phrase. The next time he did something considerate, just bringing her coffee the way she liked it, she looked at him and said, "You make me feel so safe when you pay attention to what matters to me." She told me he actually got emotional. He said no one had ever told him that before. Within a month, he was talking about moving in together. Why? Because she had activated his deepest masculine instinct, the need to be her safe harbor in a chaotic world. This isn't about being weak or dependent. It's about recognizing and honoring the protective instinct that makes men feel most alive and valuable. Point 4. I trust your judgment. The fourth phrase that creates instant devotion is "I trust your judgment." This is pure psychological gold, and here's why it works so powerfully. Trust is the ultimate aphrodisiac for men. Not sexual trust, though that's important too, but intellectual and emotional trust. When you tell a man you trust his judgment, you're telling him you value his decision-making, his wisdom, his ability to navigate life successfully. But here's the crucial part: you can't say this about everything, or it becomes meaningless. You say it about things that actually matter, things where his experience and insight genuinely add value to your life. The reason older women are so powerful with this phrase is because we've learned to spot real wisdom when we see it. We're not impressed by surface-level stuff anymore. When we say we trust someone's judgment, it carries weight because we've seen enough of life to know good judgment when we encounter it. I had a client, Patricia, who was 48 and dating a man who seemed to be pulling away. She was trying everything, looking better, being more available, planning exciting dates. Nothing worked. Then one day, he was helping her decide between two job offers. Instead of just thanking him for his advice, she looked at him and said, "I trust your judgment completely. You see things I miss." She told me it was like a switch flipped in his brain. He started calling more, making plans further in advance, introducing her to his friends. Why? Because she had given him something more precious than attraction. She had given him respect for his mind and his ability to guide and support her. This phrase tells a man that you see him as capable, wise, and trustworthy. And once a man knows you see him that way, he'll work incredibly hard to live up to that image. Point 5. You're different from other men. The fifth phrase that creates obsession is "you're different from other men." But here's the key: you can't just say this. You have to mean it, and you have to be specific about how he's different. Every man wants to feel unique, special, like he stands out from the crowd. But most women make the mistake of saying this too early or too generically. "You're so different," they'll say, without explaining what that means. When you say you're different from other men, and then you get specific about how, you're doing something powerful. You're showing him that you're paying attention, that you're noticing qualities in him that other women might miss. But here's why older women are so effective with this phrase: we've actually dated enough men to know what different looks like. When we say a man is different, we're not comparing him to some fantasy. We're comparing him to real experience with real men. I remember working with a woman named Linda, 46, who was seeing a man who was incredibly thoughtful but seemed to think she didn't notice. One evening, after he had quietly taken care of several small things that made her life easier, she said, "You're different from other men. You pay attention to what actually matters, not just what looks impressive." She told me his whole posture changed. He said most women in his past had only noticed the big, obvious gestures. But she had noticed the quiet, consistent ways he showed he cared. From that moment, he was completely devoted to her. The secret is being specific. Don't just say he's different, tell him exactly how he's different, what qualities you've noticed that set him apart. When you do this, you're not just giving him a compliment. You're showing him that you truly see him, and that's irresistible. Point 6. I love how you think. The sixth phrase that makes men absolutely addicted to your presence is "I love how you think." This is about celebrating his mental process, his unique way of seeing the world. Men are used to being valued for what they do, what they achieve, what they provide. But being valued for how they think? That's rare. That's special. That's the kind of recognition that goes straight to their core. When you say "I love how you think," you're appreciating his mind, his creativity, his problem-solving abilities, his unique perspective on life. You're telling him that the way his brain works is attractive to you. Here's why this works so well for older women: we've learned to appreciate intellectual chemistry. We're not just looking for someone who looks good or has money. We're looking for someone whose mind we actually enjoy spending time with. I had a client, Susan, who was 53 and dating a man who was incredibly smart but seemed insecure about whether women found his intelligence attractive. One day, he was explaining his theory about why certain businesses succeed while others fail, and instead of just nodding along, she said, "I love how you think. You see connections that other people miss." She told me he literally lit up. He started sharing more of his ideas, his thoughts, his dreams. And the more he shared, the more connected they became. Why? Because she had validated the part of him that he was most proud of but rarely felt appreciated for. This phrase works because it's about intimacy on an intellectual level. You're not just attracted to his body or impressed by his success. You're attracted to his mind, and that's something that creates lasting, deep connection. Point 7. I feel so understood when I'm with you. The seventh phrase that creates unbreakable bonds is "I feel so understood when I'm with you." This is about emotional intimacy, and it's incredibly powerful. Understanding is something every human being craves, but men especially hunger for it because they're often not encouraged to express their emotions or share their deeper thoughts. When you tell a man that you feel understood by him, you're telling him that he's successful at one of the most important human skills, truly connecting with another person. But here's the beautiful thing about this phrase: it's not just about what you're giving him. It's about what you're receiving. You're telling him that he creates a safe space for you to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to be yourself. Older women have a huge advantage here because we've learned what real understanding feels like. We've been through relationships where we felt misunderstood, where we felt like we had to pretend to be someone we weren't. When we find someone who truly gets us, we recognize it immediately. I worked with a woman named Grace, 44, who had been hurt in her previous relationship and was very guarded. She was dating a man who was patient, who listened without trying to fix everything, who seemed to genuinely care about her feelings. One evening, after he had listened to her talk through a difficult situation at work without offering advice or judgment, she said, "I feel so understood when I'm with you. I can be completely myself." She told me he got quiet for a moment, then said that was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever said to him. From that point on, their relationship deepened in ways she never expected. This phrase works because it tells a man that he's succeeding at something incredibly important, making you feel safe enough to be authentic. And once a man knows he can do that for you, he'll treasure that connection above everything else. Point 8. You inspire me. The eighth phrase that makes men absolutely devoted is "you inspire me." But this isn't about false flattery or empty compliments. This is about recognizing the ways he genuinely motivates you to be your best self. Men have this deep need to feel like they add value to your life, like they make you better somehow. When you tell a man he inspires you, you're telling him that his presence in your life has a positive impact, that you're growing because of him. The key is being specific. You don't just say "you inspire me," you tell him exactly how he inspires you. Maybe it's his dedication to his work, his kindness to others, his ability to stay positive in difficult situations. Older women are particularly powerful with this phrase because we've learned to recognize genuine inspiration when we see it. We're not easily impressed by surface-level stuff anymore. When we say someone inspires us, it means something real. I had a client, Margaret, who was 49 and dating a man who had overcome significant challenges in his life. He was humble about his achievements and didn't talk about them much. One day, she said to him, "You inspire me. The way you've rebuilt your life after everything you've been through, it makes me want to be braver in my own life." She told me he was completely speechless. He said no one had ever seen his struggles as inspiring before. Most people either pitied him or ignored that part of his story. But she had seen his strength, his resilience, his ability to keep going despite everything. From that moment, he was completely devoted to her. Why? Because she had seen the best in him, the parts of himself he was most proud of but rarely felt appreciated for. This phrase works because it's about mutual growth. You're not just telling him he's great, you're telling him he makes you want to be great too. Point 9. I appreciate how patient you are. The ninth phrase that creates deep emotional connection is "I appreciate how patient you are." This is about recognizing his emotional maturity, his ability to handle stress, his willingness to work through challenges calmly. Patience is an undervalued quality in our fast-paced world, but it's incredibly attractive to women who've learned what real partnership looks like. When you acknowledge a man's patience, you're recognizing his emotional intelligence, his self-control, his ability to think before he reacts. Here's why this works so well: most men are rarely appreciated for their patience. They're praised for their achievements, their strength, their success. But patience? That's often taken for granted. When you specifically call it out, you're noticing something he probably works hard at but rarely gets credit for. Older women are in the perfect position to appreciate patience because we've dealt with impatient men before. We know how rare and valuable it is when a man can stay calm under pressure, can listen without interrupting, can work through problems without losing his temper. I worked with a woman named Joan, 52, who was dating a man who was incredibly patient with her teenage daughter. He never got frustrated when the daughter was moody or difficult. He just stayed calm and kind. One evening, after he had handled a particularly challenging situation with her daughter beautifully, Joan said, "I appreciate how patient you are. Not just with her, but with everything. It makes me feel so calm when I'm with you." She told me he actually got emotional. He said he'd been working on his patience for years, trying to be different from his own father who had a terrible temper. But no one had ever noticed or appreciated that growth. This phrase works because patience is a choice, and when you acknowledge that choice, you're acknowledging his character, his growth, his commitment to being his best self. Point 10. You make me want to be a better person. The 10th and most powerful phrase is "you make me want to be a better person." This is the ultimate compliment because it's about the transformative power of your connection. When you tell a man he makes you want to be better, you're telling him that his influence on your life is profound and positive. You're not just enjoying his company, you're growing because of it. You're becoming more than you were before you met him. This phrase is incredibly powerful because it's about mutual elevation. You're not saying you need him to complete you, you're saying that being with him inspires you to reach for your highest potential. Older women have a unique advantage with this phrase because we've learned to recognize healthy relationships from unhealthy ones. We know the difference between someone who diminishes us and someone who elevates us. When we say someone makes us want to be better, we mean it in the deepest possible way. I had a client, Helen, 47, who was dating a man who lived his life with incredible integrity. He was honest, kind, generous, and principled in everything he did. One day, she said to him, "You make me want to be a better person. Being around you makes me want to live up to the woman I see reflected in your eyes." She told me he was completely overwhelmed. He said it was the most meaningful thing anyone had ever said to him. From that moment, their relationship became about supporting each other's growth, celebrating each other's victories, and building something beautiful together. This phrase works because it's about the highest form of love, the kind that doesn't just accept you as you are, but inspires you to become everything you're capable of being. So there you have it, the 10 phrases that make older women absolutely irresistible to men. But here's what I want you to understand: these aren't just words. They're expressions of a deeper truth about what makes relationships work. When you use these phrases, you're not manipulating anyone. You're recognizing and celebrating the best in the man you're with. You're creating a space where he can be vulnerable, appreciated, and truly seen. And that's what every human being craves: to be known, understood, and valued for who they really are. Here's the beautiful truth that I want you to hold on to: age is not your enemy. Experience is not a disadvantage. The wisdom you've gained, the depth you've developed, the authenticity you've learned, these are your superpowers. While younger women are still figuring out who they are, you know who you are. While they're playing games, you're building real connections. While they're focused on surface-level attraction, you're creating the kind of deep, lasting bonds that actually sustain relationships. These 10 phrases work because they come from a place of genuine appreciation and understanding. They work because you've lived enough life to recognize quality when you see it. They work because you're not desperate for attention, you're selectively choosing to give your energy to someone who deserves it. Now, here's your pro tip: don't use all of these phrases at once. Choose the ones that feel most authentic to you, the ones that genuinely reflect how you feel about the man you're with. The power is in the authenticity, not in the manipulation. Start with just 1 or 2 phrases. Pay attention to how he responds. Notice how these words change the dynamic between you. And remember, the goal isn't to make him obsessed with you. The goal is to create a connection so genuine and meaningful that neither of you can imagine being without it. Your journey matters, and I'm here to support you every step of the way.